Hi Scrappers! If you're lucky enough to be someone at the Midwest Craptacular in Brown County today, not only are you lucky to be in the beautiful Brown County, you get me here on the screen and they're in person, two Andreas. How special is that? We're gonna go ahead and start with the Beauti-FALL double page spread. So this is your kit here. You wanna go ahead and open it up. As always, our kits also come with the written instructions that are really detailed. So you're welcome to follow along with me, and you're also more than welcome to go ahead and follow the written instructions if you prefer that as well. If you're new to our kits, you will notice that we do put all of the die cuts for one page in one baggie, and all of the die cuts for the second page in another baggie. That's just for ease, so that you can kind of keep everything organized. Also notice this fun pack of embellishments from My Mind's Eye. They are actually for summer, but who says just because they're summer that they have to only be used for beach or fun in the sun, or we're going to use them here on a fall layout, and you'll notice that they're going to meet the design of our fall page just perfectly. All right, so we are going to start with the left side, which is this is what the finished product looks like here. So we're going to pull out all of the pieces just for this, and then we'll set the rest of it aside. So we need the baggie that has the fabulous memories. We also need all of these pattern paper strips here, along with the heart and the green cardstock. Everything else I'm going to go ahead and put aside. All right, for our initial step here, what I need you to do is our green obviously is our background sheet. So we need to go ahead and cut off that barcode strip. So I'm going to cut down that paper so that it is that 12 by 12 background. And then the next thing we have here is we have our heart, and then we have all of these pattern paper strips. So in the end, what it's going to look like is this. So we have the heart shape still on the right side, but we have this beautiful fan of pattern papers here on the left side. This is a great way to use up just kind of random strips of pattern paper. I just went through a stash and found ones that had all of the colors that would kind of match the scheme for this page. And how I decided what colors to use was from this background page here. So this was the total inspiration for this page. That's why we pick up the pinks and the teals. So I just found random pattern papers that would coordinate with the hues of this particular paper. And then we're going to use that to create the fan here on the right side of our heart. So this is going to be the most time-consuming part of this entire page. But there are 19 of these strips total. So what I need you to do is banner cut, what I call, cut that little triangle divot out of every single one of them. And we only want to do it on one end. So only on one end, but we're gonna just snip, and I always just kind of eyeball it. We're gonna snip that little triangle shape so that we have the piece that looks like that. If you want it exact, or if you want it a little easier, a little quicker, you can do it in one. If you lightly kind of fold the piece, the end together, you can snap. What you want to cut is from the corner to the fold. If you cut at an upward diagonal, you're going to get an arrow. So we always want to go the down. We're going to go from the corner here to the fold. And that will give you the same shape as well. So it's just whatever is easiest for you, because we do have 19 of them, right? So I'm just going to go through and cut every one of those. They are double-sided, so when we go to adhere them, you're welcome to be as creative as you want to be. So you can make it just like the sample, or you're welcome to use the flip side. This is your page, so however, it's fun and interesting and works for your photos, works for us, right? All right, we're gonna just keep going here. Until we get through all 19 pieces. You'll be a pro at this by the end, right? All right, we got just a few more to go here. And again, we're just snipping one end of all 19 pieces. Don't worry if they're not exactly in the center there. Doesn't have to be perfect, right? If someone's looking at your page that closely, then they're looking kind of at the wrong thing, right? We're doing this, we want to highlight our photos, highlight our memories. This is all the fun kind of embellishments to make the page pretty. So, all right, for this step here, there are a few ways to do it. You can go ahead and adhere just one by one. And then you can fan them out however you wish. But when we put them down, we want to make sure, and if I flip it over here, maybe you can see, we want to make sure that we're following the curvature here of this side of our heart. And by the way, isn't this side adorable? I just love these little like Frappuccino mugs on this side of the paper. But we want our pattern paper strips to just barely show above that heart there. So we want to follow that direction. So you can kind of fan them all out and then kind of adhere them down, or you can just start adhering them one by one. When we adhere them, because there are so many, we will see that there's going to be a big bulk here in the center section. So what I want you to do is I only want you to place adhesive on the top upper half of each strip. That way, once we get all of these pieces fanned out, where that bulkiness is, where they all meet, we can kind of snip off all of those ends. So if you lay them all out first, then you'll know exactly in advance where you could cut out that bulk. But I am just going to go for it. I am just going to go ahead and lay them one by one by one. I do use the ATG runner. And as long as you don't press down firmly, it is somewhat forgiving. So we still will have some flexibility to move stuff around. But I am just going to go ahead and one by one adhere my strips all the way around. It absolutely doesn't matter the order. Again, we're just kind of following the curve. We want to make sure that our pieces go just a little above our heart, only placing adhesive on the outer half and making sure that our banner cut is at the top. We want to make sure we see those triangular cuts all the way around. And if you notice, I'm starting to angle them slightly so that we can follow the curvature here of our heart. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And the adhesive that I'm using will be somewhat forgiving. So in case I need to kind of move some stuff around here in a little bit, I will be able to do that. So just keep that in mind if you're using an adhesive that is super strong and kind of unforgiving. I'm gonna do it just like the sample again. It doesn't have to be, but just for the ease of the presentation, I'm gonna go ahead and make it just as the sample here. Continuing all the way around my heart. All right, get the burlap here. And see what I mean, how it's starting to get bulky right here? Our photo mats are gonna cover kind of where they all meet. However, we don't really want it to be that bulky in our album. So that's why we're only placing adhesive on just half of it, so that we can kind of go in once all of these pieces are done and cut out some of that bulk. As I said, if you had laid these out all on their own prior, then you could have cut all of that bulk out ahead of adhering it. To me, this was just the easier way to do it. Time is precious, right? So any way that we can make this easier works for me. All right, I'm gonna sneak down and put our bottom one down, which will go about there. If you notice, I kind of make a straight line with our first and our final pieces here so that we're exactly working on half of our heart. All right, just a few more here. All right. And there we go, just like that. All right, so I do have a couple extra pieces. You should have plenty to go all the way around. It just depends on how much you overlap them. But in general, you want the effect to kind of be like this. So where half of them, or half of the heart is covered with the fan of pattern papers here, and then we have our half that's just regular. But this is what I mean by the bulk. See, there's a lot of pieces of paper that kind of overlap each other here. So that would be really thick in a scrapbook page and could cause the rest of your pages before and after it to bend. So since I know my photo mats are gonna cover this section, I am just gonna go in and literally just kind of snip off all of those loose ends, just to kind of eliminate some of that bulk. It is still going to be a little bulky there, but this will help that tremendously. And don't worry about if you're cutting too far. You can always position your photos so that they exactly cover up all of the ends here. So there you go. And once you do that, you'll see that's actually just a lot flatter in that area and not quite as bulky. So once you have all of that complete, then we're going to go ahead and adhere this heart in the center of our page. So we'll just flip that over. I'm just making sure I put quite a bit of adhesive since it's going to be a little bit of a heavy piece with all of those papers. But again, if you can see how the back of mine is here, you can see where we just see a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of every strip so that we know that we're exactly following the shape of that heart. Then we're going to adhere that just exactly in the center of our page. Just like that. All right, in your bag now, you'll notice that from here on out, we are going to give you full sheets of paper for your photo mats. So there were going to be a little bit of a transition period here. So you'll notice that some of your kits will come with the mats pre-cut, and then some of them will come with the full sheet of paper. So until we get through that transition with some of the kits that we currently have in stock to the ones that we're producing right now, you're going to see a blend of both. But we are eventually switching it so that all of your kits will come with a full sheet of cardstock, and then you can cut your mats to size. We do give you the size of the mats as they are exactly with the sample. So in case you want them to be exact, you know the exact dimensions to cut that paper. So just for the ease of the instruction here, I'm going to cut them exact to size. So in your packet, you have 2 sheets of brown. You have a canvas, 2 sheets of canvas brown here. So these are the 2 that you will use for the photo mats. We're not going to use them for anything else other than photo mats. So you will have plenty of paper to cut your photo mats how they work for you. So again, I'm going to cut them just as the sample. I'm going to set this aside here. I'm going to cut them just like the sample, just for ease. So when you cut a photo mat, the white here shows you the actual size of the photo. So the white is not a mat. The white would be the photo itself. So this photo would be 4 by 6, and this photo would be 3.5 by 5. When you cut your photo mats, you want at least 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. Now, obviously you can make it thicker than that, but I would say that that's pretty much the minimum. So in order to get 1/8 of an inch here and 1/8 of an inch here, we need to add 1/4 of an inch to our photo size. So this mat would be cut 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. This photo mat would be cut 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, which is exactly what I'm going to cut. So I'm going to cut the 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And then using that little extra piece there, I'm going to cut the 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. So you can save this step, obviously, and that way when you know what your photos are, you can make it exact. Or perhaps you already have your photos with you and you can go ahead and mat those now. So I'm just going to go ahead and add my photo mats. One like that. And then one just like that. So as I said here, there's a lot of wiggle room in that center there, so don't worry about if you've cut your paper strips a little too short. We should be able to cover up most of that with any of your photo mats. All right, now that we have the base of our page complete, we can go ahead and start with all of our fun little die cuts. I always keep mine in the baggie until I'm ready to use them, just so that I don't lose any pieces. So the first we have here is our Fabulous Memories. So we're going to adhere the 2 layers of the Fabulous Memories together. And just punch out the center of the A there. Again, I always use my tweezers. Easier for me to grab them that way. And I'm going to just run my liquid adhesive along the back. And I'm just going to use just a tiny, tiny bit. It doesn't need a lot. Your page protector is going to help keep it down as well. So we just want to make sure that there's enough to keep all of those little pieces from getting caught when we stick it in our photo album. All right, so now we can adhere our Fabulous Memories. Now, if you do it just like the sample, you will notice that the word fabulous does overlap our mat. So we want to make sure that we don't put any adhesive on the top of the B, the top of the L, top of the F, so in case we wanted to slip our photos underneath later. So even if you don't have your photo mats down, I would still not put any adhesive at the top of those letters, again, so that we can have the space to put our photos underneath later if we need to do that. So I'm going to adhere the word memories here in this lower left corner. The good thing about this background paper is that it has a grid on the back so that you can see exactly if something is straight. You have that kind of that cheat sheet there, that line to show you exactly where it should go. And again, I'm only going to put adhesive along the bottom. I'm going to intertwine it just a little bit here. So I kind of have slipped under the dot of the I there, just so they kind of all intertwine in each other. It's kind of one of the basic principles of design is if something slightly overlaps another piece, it really makes it look purposeful. I always, and you've heard me say this before if you've taken my classes, but I always chuckle that once upon a time when we started scrapbooking, when we used all the little teeny stickers, it would look like someone just went achoo, and wherever the stickers flew, that's where we stuck them down. And that's really, we've really gotten away from that as we use more of our design techniques in our scrapbooking. So overlapping all of these elements really gives it a purpose and really grounds it. So next we have all of our tiny die cuts here, all of our flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and pull all of those pieces out. And then we're done with that baggie. All right, so first here I'm going to go ahead and do the leaf. I am going to ink these. As always, that is just a personal preference. I like how the inking effect is. I'm going to go direct from the ink pad to the leaf itself, and I'm going to use Strawberry Milkshake. And I am just going to go there along that upper half of our leaf. It's okay if you go a little dark. If you notice it is dark there, of course, since it's a powder puff, it's going to dry a little lighter. But that is the only piece I'm going to ink for this particular leaf. And then we can adhere all three pieces together. So again, that pink is Strawberry Milkshake. Ink just the pink layer, and then we're going to adhere all of those layers together. All right, next we have this hot pink and white. I did ink a couple of the tips of those petals as well. I used barn board to ink those. So I'm just going to lightly go along the tips of each of those flower petals there. And then we can adhere our pink layer to our white. So again, just a little adhesive there. This is symmetrical, so it should go on pretty easily in any direction there. Then we have our little center. I did ink that as well. I used the Baja Blue. It is a really dark color, so just be aware of that when you go to ink, that it is pretty dark. So we don't want to cover the whole thing, we just want to cover just along the edges there. And then I'm going to use 3D foam squares to adhere the center to my flower. So if you prefer it to be a little more flush, obviously it's okay just to adhere it straight to our flower there. Actually, I think we might get 2 using the little teeny one, so I'm going to grab another pop dot. Just like so. We'll peel off those little backs. And then adhere the center of this to our flower. Number 2 is done. 2 to go. All right, so we have the 2 layers here. We have a gold and a hot pink layer for this double leaf. Again, I'm going to use the barn board on the pink here. This time I'm going to ink at the base only of those flowers, of those leaves, and I'm going to go pretty heavy just along the base there. If you want it to be even darker, this dries super fast, so just give it a few seconds and allow it to dry, and then you can go back and go over it again. And you can do that several times, and that will make it darker and darker each time. Because again, don't forget it will lighten up as it dries. And then we're going to put those 2 layers together. Just like so. Alrighty, 1 more to go. For this one is a little different than the other ones. We notice that we have our white overlay that's going to go on top of our flower here. So I didn't want to ink the white because I really like the stark difference of the white border there. But I wanted to add a little more color here. So if we just inked the edges, you wouldn't see it, right? Because we're going to put the overlay directly on top of our piece here, like so. This one is not symmetrical, so you're going to have to move this all the way around until you find how it meets, just like a puzzle, by the way. So, but I wanted to see just a little bit of additional color. So what I need you to do is, and I have used the pumpkin pie, I need you to go in really far, about halfway. So about halfway, or a third of the way, I want you to go down into the center, particularly of this die cut. The edges we're going to end up covering, but the center part, petals that we will see. So if I can move this around till I find out the exact location here. That's always the hardest part of these die cuts, right? There we go. So once you stick those together, see the difference? See how you see the darker orange that kind of gets lighter and then all of a sudden goes to just the color of our cardstock. I thought that's just a kind of like a symbol of exactly what all of the leaves do in the fall, right? You start seeing the change of the color of the leaf as it goes. So I love how that effect kind of mimicked what nature does all on its own. And then we'll go ahead and adhere that top layer. Again, we gotta find our puzzle piece, find the exact direction of that. All right, so that's all 4 of our die cuts, and they're ready to adhere down to the page. So I'm going to go ahead and just place my adhesive along all of the back of these. Just like so. And then I'm going to adhere them just like the sample. Again, you might have to vary yours. It just kind of depends on your photos. And again, what I was saying, how we like to just slightly overlap all of these pieces. If you notice, I took the stem and just barely tucked it under my M. It overlaps the F. Again, it just kind of gives it more purpose there. But then I'm going to make these follow just like my sample here. just like so. All right, one final step and then we'll be complete with this page. So in your baggie, we have this entire pack of fun embellishments by My Mind's Eye. You will have some extras on this too, so lots of fun stuff going on here. So I'm just going to embellish it, and you can really embellish however that you want. Just realize that we're going to use some of these on the next page as well. But I'm going to go ahead again and just make it just like the sample, just for ease. Don't these look like brads? They look like they should be little tiny brads, but they're not. They're self-adhesive. I love that. I love that we don't have to, you know, poke the hole and open up the legs on the back. These are all self-adhesive here. So again, I'm going to just make it just like the sample. Just some fun extra little dimension to add to that page. Just like that. And again, you're going to have plenty of extras, so you're welcome to put as many of these as you want. I'm going to just leave it at that for now. And you've done it. You've completed the first page. All right, now we're going to move on to page number 2. So we're going to use all of the rest of the pieces to complete this page here. This is the final piece here with our Beauti-FALL page here. All right, obviously the first thing we're going to start with is our tree background sheet. So we're going to pull out our tree sheet here, and again, we need to cut off that barcode strip. So we're going to go ahead and cut off that barcode strip. This paper is by Cartabella, and many of you probably know that Cartabella is also owned by Echo Park. But I love the texture of the Cartabella paper. For some reason, it always reminds me of like sweater weather. So I think how perfect is it that we're using it on a fall page. But I love kind of the thick canvas texture of that. So that's what we're going to start with here. The next we have is our, if I can reach over here, the next we're going to cut down, we have a green embossed sheet of cardstock. So go ahead and pull out your green cardstock. And I love how it's already embossed. We have carried the canvas collection of My Colors for several years, but recently started carrying the embossed and the glimmer collections, and we're using all three on this page. The texture of those is, as I say, the reason why I can't do digital scrapbooking, though I'm a graphic designer by trade, because I love all of those fun textures. So this is the embossed dot collection. But we need to cut this down. So this we need to cut down to 10.5 by 10.5. So again, we're going to cut this down. We're going to cut it 10.5 by 10.5. 10.5 by 10.5. And once you have that cut down to size, we're going to go ahead and adhere it in the center of our page. I'm just going to run my adhesive. And then adhere that directly in the center of our background. All right, for the next step, we have a piece of the glimmer paper. So don't you just love the sheen of that paper? By the way, I'm sure you probably have heard this before, but if you ever want to know the direction of the grain, say you're trying to rip paper, you're trying to send it through a printer, you need to know the grain. And to find the grain of the paper is, if you hold up a full sheet of paper, it will bend along with the grain. So if you notice here how the paper bends, but if I hold it this way, see how it doesn't want to bend? That's going the opposite direction of the grain. So if I hold it this way and it bends, we know that's the grain of the paper. That only becomes important when you're ripping. It will rip easier, tear easier with the grain. If you're trying to cut this down to put it in your printer, you want it to follow the grain to go through your printer easy. So again, if you hold the paper, if it bends, that's how you know the grain. If I were to hold it on the other side and it wants to remain straight, that's against the grain. For this, it doesn't make a difference. I just wanted to give you a little tidbit of information there. But we're gonna cut this down. We're gonna cut it 10 1/4 by 10 1/4. 10 1/4 by 10 1/4. And again, all of these measurements are also written in your written directions there. So if you ever miss something, take a look at your instruction sheet there. And then again, we're gonna just adhere that in the center of our green. And there we go. There we have our background sheet, and now we are ready to kind of start laying out everything else. So these are all the die cuts that are gonna go on this page. And I'm gonna go ahead and put my title at the top. That way we know that we have room for it, and we can kind of work all of our photos and work all of our other die cuts around that. So we're gonna pull this out here. There is a dot to the I in Beautiful. If you don't have it, don't worry. I didn't use it on the sample. I end up using an embellishment to be the dot of the I instead. But there is one in there if you want to keep it with that. All right, so I'm gonna just kind of lay out how I want this to go and then adhere it down. So I'm gonna do something kind of like that there. You know, there's all kinds of rules in design, and I often said, and I probably said it a lot as a teenager, rules can be broken. Typically, you don't put two different cursive fonts together, but they are so dramatically different in their style that I really love how it really emphasizes how the play on the word is here for the Beauti-FALL. So then I'm going to go ahead and adhere these down. I'm going to adhere this piece here first. Well, it looks like we're clogged. Alrighty. Just like so. And then we're going to get our Beautiful here. You'll notice all of these are cut with the Canvas collection from My Colors cardstock, which I think by far cuts the best out of any paper on the market. I really love how it goes through a die cutting system, and even though we can have thin and intricate pieces, it really cuts beautifully. All right, so I'm gonna go like that. If you notice when I did my F here, I kind of wanted it to connect it to our I, so it's really going to overlap and look like it just flows from one letter to the other. That was purposeful there. All right, there's our F. And then the rest of our letters. Alrighty. So now that we have our title down, a lot of the rest of it is going to depend on how we cut our photos and where we want to put our photos. I really wanted the embellishments to be heavy in the center and then have photos on both sides. If you were only going to do one or the other, maybe you wanted all of your leaves to go down the side, I would perhaps put all of your leaves here and then all of your photos here. Really, it's going to depend on how many photos and where you want to place them. But you have all kinds of cardstock there to cut your mats. So if I pull mine out, I'm going to cut mine exact. So if you wanted to cut it just exact to our sample here, again, the white is to show you the actual photo itself. There is no white mat here. We just couldn't write the 4x6 on an actual photo. You wouldn't be able to see it. So we're going to cut our mats just 1/4 inch bigger. So this large one here is going to be 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. These two small ones would be 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. Again, it's kind of going to depend on what your photos are and how you want to cut them. I'm just going to cut them exact. And you'll notice in your instructions, we do give you the exact measurements if you want your sample to be exactly the same. And again, you should have plenty of paper there for your photo mats. I'm getting all of these photo mats out of just a single sheet of paper, with even left over from that first sheet there. I'm going to go ahead and put the photo mats just as they are in the sample. So I'm going to start with these tiny ones. I always like the texture side up. So I'm making sure I'm running my adhesive on the back there. All right, so we're just kind of gonna eyeball it there. Put one like that. And one just like so. And we'll put the other one about like that. And by doing that, we have all kinds of room here in the middle. Obviously, you could put, 2, 3 photos here as well. Just kind of depends on how many photos you have and want to showcase there. So now we get to do all of the fun embellishing here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out all of our die cuts. All right, we're going to start with the leaf. This bright pink leaf here. You can probably guess at this point what color I'm going to ink it, but I did use the barn board. So if you pull out your barn board, I actually just went down the right side. There is no rule that says we have to go all the way around. When the sun casts a shadow, it doesn't cast it all around you, it casts it down to one side. So I mimic that principle in my inking. All right, so that's gonna go like that. So we're gonna put just a little bit of adhesive down our stem. Like so. Alrighty. And then I'm just going to work my way up. So our next one here is going to be this white leaf. Now we have the 3 layers. We have the white, the pink, and the brown. So obviously we're only going to see the top layer. And the joy of white is that you can ink it absolutely any color that you want to ink it. So for this, I wanted to mimic again, obviously we don't have white leaves, but I wanted to mimic kind of the fall colors. So I'm actually going to use Peach Bellini, and I am going to ink along that bottom edge there. And I'm going to go in pretty far with my inking, so I'm going to go really light on the surface. And then I'm going to go back and go really dark right along the edge. So we have the lighter effect that's directly on the white. And again, that crisper edge there along, going over again a little bit harder with my rub along the edge. So there's that leaf, and then we'll go ahead and adhere all 3 of those pieces together. Like so. And since this is pretty big, I'm actually going to use my tape runner to adhere that final layer there. All right, again, I'm just gonna work my way up, and believe it or not, I didn't ink the next piece at all. So we have that white overlay. If you haven't seen in our shop, we do sell overlays now. So we've started with just 6 designs, but tell you, my mind's going crazy when we have so many more planned. I just think it's fun. Obviously, it's a trend right now, but they make putting pages together so fun and easy, and I just love how the outline and the emphasis is there. All right, so next we have the lighter pink leaf with the white base. So I am going to ink the light pink with the strawberry. If you wanted, you could use a dauber to really, what you could do is the opposite of what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of going along the edge of a few of those petals. You could use a dauber and do just the inside, which would be a really fun technique that you could do on this flower, and not necessarily go along the outer edge, but take your dauber and really pick up these edges and only go in the center. Would kind of be a fun trick of the eye there. You don't think about it, but your eye would catch it because it's different than all the other ones. All right. So I'll add those 2 layers together. All right, just a couple more to go here. That's kind of gonna go like that. All right, we're gonna do the exact same thing to this pink and teal flower as we did to the one on the other side. So I'm gonna ink just the outer edge of some of the petals there with my barn board. Looks like I'm about time for a new ink pad. All right, and we're gonna adhere our bright pink layer to our white. I'm sure when you do typically put together fall pages, you don't really think about adding pink to fall. I am not a pink girl at all. I wore my pink today so that I would coordinate appropriately. Not really. But I loved how Echo Park with Cartabella had put that little pop of pink in their fall paper. And I thought, why not, right? Again, why can't we break these rules? When you're in kindergarten and they say, let's make a tree, and you make the trunk brown and you make the top of the tree green. Why does it have to be that way? It's art, right? We can make these any colors that we want them to be. I'm not a traditionalist when it comes to all of that. Let your imagination soar. So again, I've inked that center circle there with the Baja Blue, and I'm going to use my foam squares to adhere that in the center of our flower. 1 and 2. And we'll peel off the back of those. And adhere it in the center of our flower there. And it's gonna go about like so. And we have one more here. All right, for this one, the light pink layer, I did ink in Strawberry Milkshake. I'm gonna go ahead and go all the way around these petals. Just like so. It is symmetrical, so it should be pretty easy to line up. And then we have our center circle. I did ink that with the pumpkin pie. And I'm going to adhere this one direct. because I'm going to go ahead and put the 3D foam squares on this entire flower. And I am not stingy when it comes to my foam squares. I want it to lay pretty flat. So I tend to just load it up. Not going to be stingy at all. Just like so. And then I'm not going to peel those off yet since we're not adhering. I'm just kind of going to lay everything out. All right, we have one final flower here, and there is a technique that we're going to do to it. But first, if you remember what we did to this flower on the first page, we're going to do it again here. So we're going to take our pumpkin pie and ink about half of this yellow base here, just like so. So that when we adhere our overlay, we see a lot of that color pop. And again, it's like a puzzle piece. We're just going to keep moving it until we find its direction. All right. Put some adhesive on the back here. And just like so. There is one more technique that we're going to do to this flower. We're going to add just a little more texture here. So go back to your embellishment pack, and in your embellishment pack you have that yellow baker's twine, and go ahead and pull all of that off of the pack. Here we're going to use almost all of it. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to put some adhesive. I'm going to set this aside so maybe you can see it a little better there. So we're going to put adhesive in the center section of this flower here. If you look at our final flower, if I can show it here, we have this center section that has the circular pattern of that baker's twine, just like that. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to fill the center of that flower with the baker's twine. I would suggest a really strong, dry adhesive for this. I wouldn't use liquid. I just don't know if it will hold it quick enough to complete this entire process. But I really loaded up that center. So you could use the really gummy like 3D, the glue dots, just to kind of totally fill that space there. And I start in the center. You don't want to start along the outer edge when you're doing a project like this, because what if you run out before you get to the center? If you start in the center and work your way out, when you run out, you just stop, right? So that says how much as you get. So I'm going to put that down there. And the key is to really start it in the center. And I'm going to just get it started here and then show you. So if you notice, I have just stuck that to my adhesive in the center. And then I'm going to wrap in a circular motion all the way around. So sometimes it's hard to get the circular shape. If it's an oval shape, it's okay. This is just to add kind of a little fun extra texture and dimension to that. And it's easier for me to keep working my die cut, so just to keep moving it in that circular shape. And you want to make sure they're as tight together as they can be. You're going to have plenty of baker's twine, trust me, so don't have to worry about running out for this one. And I am just going to keep working my way all the way around that circle. See how that's coming together? Again, all the way around the circle. This is also something really fun, technique that you could use, especially at Christmas time with candy canes. You could use in the springtime with flowers. You can make it just the flower. And once I get kind of a decent circle shape all the way around, then I'm just going to snip that end. like so. See, and there should be plenty of extra twine there. There is just this little tail where it doesn't have the adhesive, so there I'm going to go ahead and use my liquid and just tack down that in there just to make sure that that stays in place. Just like that. How fun, right? Just a little bit of baker's twine. All right, so now that all of our pieces are all done, we can go ahead and adhere those however they work with your photo there. I always lay everything out. That way I can kind of know where it goes, then kind of rearrange, because I'm a perfectionist, which is a fault. All right, and then we're just gonna go ahead and one by one adhere all of these pieces here. Just like so. With our happy little leaves. I'm working my way up. All right, now our light pink one. If you are using a really, really strong tacky adhesive, just be careful when you're putting adhesive where all of these pieces overlap your photo mats. I always like to slip my photos underneath. You don't have to do it that way either. You could obviously stick your photo right on top of that, and that's perfectly fine as well. But if you want to slip your photo underneath, just be careful about going all the way to the tip there. All right, a little flower here. It's gonna go about right there. And then we'll take our adhesive backing off. Really, you wouldn't have to peel them all off. We could just peel off the big ones and it's gonna stick to your page. It's not gonna go anywhere. You really don't have to pull them all off for it to stick. All right, and then we have our final one. And I'm gonna put that where all of those kind of stems meet in the middle to kind of cover all of that up. All right, so then we're gonna go back here to our embellishment pack. And then I'm just gonna randomly kind of add all of our pieces here. There are plenty, so again, just kind of have fun with it. It's just meant to add a little pop of color, kind of a little fun whimsy. Again, you do have the dot of the eye. It is super tiny, super, super tiny. So you're welcome to use that. I went ahead and used this pretty little flower one as the dot of my eye. And I'm going to add the tag and that upper corner there. And I'm going to call that done. So you still have a few little extra embellishments that you'll be able to use. And there you go. And there is our first class spread. Happy Beauti-FALL day.